The Renaissance was more than a period of history. It was a revolution of the human spirit. Between the 14th and 17th centuries, Europe awoke from the long medieval slumber to rediscover art, science, and the boundless power of human imagination. Born in the city-states of Italy, this movement spread across the continent, reshaping every corner of Western civilization. It was a time when creativity, curiosity, and courage merged to define what we now call the modern world. It began in Florence, a city of merchants and bankers, where wealth from trade financed dreams of beauty and brilliance. The Medici family, one of the most powerful dynasties in Europe, became patrons of painters, architects, and philosophers. Their investment in art wasn't just charity, it was strategy, a way to showcase power, culture, and divine favor through beauty. In this fertile soil, the seeds of genius flourished. Artists like Giotto had already begun breaking from medieval conventions, introducing perspective and emotion into religious art. But the Renaissance took those early sparks and turned them into wildfire. Human beings began to see themselves not as insignificant before God, but as reflections of divine creativity itself. Humanity became the measure of all things. The word Renaissance literally means rebirth, and that's exactly what it was, a rebirth of classical knowledge. Ancient Greek and Roman texts, long forgotten in the Dark Ages, were rediscovered in monasteries and libraries. Scholars began to translate Aristotle, Plato, and Cicero. Their ideas about philosophy, politics, and science reignited a belief in human potential. The movement known as humanism was born, a celebration of reason, language, and learning that placed man at the center of the universe rather than the edge of it. At the heart of this intellectual awakening stood figures like Petrarch, often called the father of humanism. He scoured old manuscripts, believing that through understanding the classics, humanity could achieve greatness again. To him, knowledge wasn't a burden, it was liberation. This spirit spread through universities and academies, changing education itself from theology-dominated to inquiry-driven. But the Renaissance wasn't confined to books and theories. It expressed itself in color, light, stone, and music. Florence, Rome, Venice, and Milan became living galleries of innovation. Architecture shifted from fortress-like cathedrals to elegant domes and harmonious proportions. Filippo Brunelleschi's dome over the Florence Cathedral remains one of history's most stunning engineering triumphs, a perfect marriage of faith and mathematics. Then came Leonardo da Vinci, perhaps the most complete embodiment of the Renaissance mind. Painter, inventor, anatomist, and dreamer. Leonardo studied everything from how water flowed to how birds flew. His notebooks, filled with sketches and ideas, reveal a man centuries ahead of his time. The Mona Lisa and The Last Supper weren't just paintings. They were studies of psychology, light, and divine mystery. While Leonardo explored the nature of everything, Michelangelo sculpted eternity from marble. His David captured both the physical perfection of man and the spiritual courage of a biblical hero. When he painted the Sistine Chapel ceiling, he transformed theology into visual poetry. Every figure pulsed with power and movement, as if life itself were bursting through paint. Renaissance art wasn't only about beauty, it was a philosophy rendered in form. Artists began using perspective, anatomy, and geometry to create depth and realism. Light became symbolic, emotion became tangible, and the human body became the most sacred subject of all. Through their brushes and chisels, artists declared, "To understand humanity is to understand God's creation." Yet the Renaissance was more than art. It was also an explosion of science and discovery. Astronomers like Copernicus challenged centuries of dogma by placing the sun, not Earth, at the center of the universe. This idea would later be expanded by Galileo. His telescope confirmed the motion of the planets and opened humanity's eyes to the vastness of the cosmos. In medicine, Andreas Vesalius dissected the human body to map anatomy with unprecedented accuracy, while Paracelsus revolutionized chemistry and healing. Knowledge, once bound by fear and faith alone, became a tool of exploration. People began to question, experiment, and test the world around them. The Renaissance gave birth to the scientific method, the foundation of modern science. Meanwhile, across Europe, the printing press changed everything. In 1450, Johannes Gutenberg invented a movable type printing system that made books accessible to ordinary people for the first time in history. Ideas could now travel faster than armies. Knowledge escaped the control of kings and clergy, sparking revolutions in thought, religion, and politics. As printed Bibles spread across Europe, another revolution began, the Protestant Reformation. Martin Luther's challenge to the Catholic Church in 1517 shattered religious unity and redefined the spiritual landscape of Europe. While not a direct product of the Renaissance, it was deeply influenced by the same hunger for truth and personal understanding. The Renaissance encouraged people to seek answers for themselves, and that spirit of questioning reshaped Western faith forever. The Renaissance also inspired exploration beyond Europe's borders, with new navigational tools and a thirst for discovery. Explorers like Christopher Columbus, Ferdinand Magellan, and Vasco da Gama expanded the world map. Trade routes, cultures, and empires collided in an age of global awakening, though this also brought exploitation, conquest, and the beginnings of colonialism. The Renaissance both enlightened and complicated the world. In Northern Europe, the movement took on a more restrained but equally powerful form. Artists like Jan van Eyck and Albrecht Dürer brought meticulous realism to painting, using oil-based techniques that captured light and texture in ways Italian artists never imagined. Their art was both devotional and personal, blending faith with an emerging individualism that would define modern Western identity. Writers, too, captured the spirit of rebirth. In England, William Shakespeare transformed the stage into a mirror of human nature, exploring love, power, ambition, and tragedy with language that still resonates today. In Spain, Cervantes gave the world Don Quixote, a masterpiece that mocked the old medieval ideals while embracing the complexity of the human mind. Politically, Niccolò Machiavelli's The Prince examined power in raw, realistic terms, divorcing governance from morality. His ideas were controversial, but brutally honest, a sign that the Renaissance no longer accepted authority without question. Governments, like art and science, became subjects of study and critique. Economically, trade and banking flourished. Cities like Venice became hubs of commerce, connecting Europe with Asia and Africa. Wealth created opportunities for patronage, education, and architecture, but it also deepened inequality. The Renaissance revealed both the brilliance and the fragility of human ambition. Women, though often constrained by societal norms, played vital roles. Figures like Isabella d'Este became patrons of the arts, while writers such as Christine de Pizan challenged gender inequality through literature. The Renaissance opened cracks in the walls of patriarchy, foreshadowing future movements for equality. By the 16th century, the Renaissance had spread across Europe, transforming not just art and science, but how people viewed themselves. The medieval world's focus on divine destiny gave way to human potential, innovation, and reason. Education expanded, curiosity flourished, and creativity became the highest calling. However, this golden age was not without its shadows. Wars between city-states, religious conflicts, and political corruption often marred its ideals. Yet, even in turmoil, the Renaissance spirit endured the belief that beauty, knowledge, and faith could coexist and uplift humanity. When the movement finally gave way to the Baroque era and the rise of the Enlightenment, its legacy remained indelible. The Renaissance gave birth to modern art, modern science, and the modern self. It redefined what it meant to be human in a world both divine and discoverable. From the marble halls of Florence to the quiet studies of scholars, from the strokes of Da Vinci's brush to the printing press of Gutenberg, the Renaissance reshaped reality. It taught us that creation and discovery are sacred acts, that to learn, to build, to imagine is to honor the Creator himself. Today, we still live in the shadow and light of that era. Every scientific experiment, every piece of architecture, every painting or poem owes something to that rebirth. The Renaissance is not merely history, it is the foundation of our civilization's soul. The spirit of the Renaissance calls to us still. It reminds us to seek knowledge, create beauty, and question boldly. It teaches that greatness is not born from wealth or status, but from curiosity, courage, and the relentless pursuit of truth. If you enjoyed this journey through time, don't forget to like this video. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications for more stories that bring history to life. Below and tell us what other historical events or eras you'd like us to explore next. Your ideas help shape our next adventure through the pages of time. The Renaissance was not just a chapter in history, it was the moment humanity remembered its power to dream, to learn, and to rise again.